audiences. This week, a modern version of a classic drama, Jean Anouilh's Antigone.
Well, here we are. We are about to act out for you the story of Antigone. That thin little creature sitting all alone, staring straight ahead, seeing nothing, is Antigone. She's thinking. She's thinking that the instant I finish telling you who's who and what's what in this play, she will burst forth as the dark, tense, serious girl who's about to rise up and face the whole world alone. Alone against the world and against Creon, her uncle, the king. Another thing she's thinking is this. She's going to die. Antigone is young. She would much rather live than die. And yet, there's no help for it. When you're on the side of the gods against the tyrant, of man against the state, of purity against corruption. In short, when your name is Antigone, there is only one part you can play, and she must play hers through to the end. Mind you, Antigone doesn't know all of these things I'm telling you about herself. I know them because it's my business to know them. That's what a Greek chorus is for. All that she knows is that Creon won't allow her dead brother to be buried, and that despite Creon, she must bury him. See, Antigone doesn't really think. She acts. She doesn't reason. She feels. That young man is talking to Antigone's sister, Ismene. The gay and golden Ismene. He is Haman, the king's son, Creon's son. Antigone and he are engaged to be married. He likes sports, competition. He likes dancing. He likes women, too. But anyone would think that she would be the one he would go for. Look at Ismene again. She's certainly much more beautiful than Antigone. But, well, there was a ball one night. Ismene wore a new evening dress. She was absolutely radiant. Haman danced every dance with her. And yet that same night, before the ball was over, Haman went in search of Antigone, found her sitting alone just like that, with her arms clasped around her knees. And Haman asked her to marry him. It didn't seem to surprise Antigone in the least. She looked up at him out of those solemn eyes of hers, smiled sort of sadly, and said, yes. That was all. Well, here is Haman expecting to marry Antigone. He won't, of course. He didn't know when he asked her to marry him that the earth wasn't meant to hold a husband of Antigone's, and that this princely distinction was to earn for him no more than the right to die sooner than he otherwise might have done. That gray-haired, powerfully built man, sitting alone, lost in thought with his page at his side, is Creon, the king. His face is lined. He's tired. He practices the difficult art of a leader of men. When he was younger, when Oedipus was king and Creon was no more than the king's brother-in-law, he was quite different. He loved music. He was a collector of rare manuscripts. He was a kind of patron of the arts. He would while away whole afternoons in the antique shops of the city of Thebes. But Oedipus died. Oedipus' sons died, and Creon's moment had come. He had to roll up his sleeves and take over the kingdom. I'll tell you something about Creon. He has a tendency to fool himself. This leader of men, this brilliant debater and logician, likes to believe that if it were not for his sense of responsibility, he would gladly step right down from the throne and go back to collecting manuscripts. The fact is, he loves being king. He's an artist who has always believed that he could govern just as well as any man of action could, and that no god nor any man tell him what is best for the common people. Creon has a wife, a queen. Her name is Eurydice. There she sits, the gracious lady with the sewing, next to the nurse who brought up the two girls. Eurydice will go on sewing all through the play, till the time comes for her to go to her room and die. She's a good woman, a worthy, loving soul, but she's absolutely no help to her husband. No, Creon has to face the music alone with his page, who's too young to be of any help. The others, well, let's see. That pale young man playing the piano is the messenger. Later on, he will come running in to tell us the news of Haman's death. He has a premonition of catastrophe. That's what he's brooding over as he plays. That's why he won't mingle with the others. Over here, 3 red-faced card players. They're the guards. Policemen. Eternally innocent, no matter what crimes are committed. Eternally indifferent, for nothing that happens really matters to them. They're quite prepared to arrest anybody, including Creon himself, should the order be given by a new leader. Well, that's the lot. Now for the play. Oedipus was the father of the 2 girls, Antigone and Ismene. He also had 2 sons, Eteocles and Polynices. After Oedipus died, it was agreed that the 2 sons should share his throne, each to reign over the kingdom of Thebes in alternate years. But when Eteocles, the elder son, had reigned a full year, and the time had come for him to step down, he refused to yield up the throne to his younger brother, Polynices. Well, there was civil war. The 2 brothers fought just outside the city walls and killed themselves. Now Creon is king. A reign of terror has begun. Creon has issued a solemn edict that Eteocles, with whom he had sided, is to be buried with pomp and honor, and that Polynices is to be left to rot. The vultures and dogs are to bloat themselves on his carcass. No gravestone is to be set up in his memory. Nobody's to go into mourning for him. And above all, anyone attempting to give Polynices religious burial will himself be put to death.
Antigone, where have you been?
Nowhere. It was beautiful. The whole world was gray when I went out. And now you wouldn't recognize it. It's like a postcard. It's all pink and green and yellow. Nanny, you'll have to get up earlier if you want to see a world without color.
Yes, it was pitch black when I got up. I went to your room. I thought you might have thrown off your blanket in the night. You weren't there.
The garden was so lovely. It was still asleep.
You weren't asleep in your bed. I couldn't find you. I went to the back door. You'd left it half open.
The fields were wet. They were waiting for something to happen. The whole world was waiting, breathless. I took off my sandals and slipped into a field.
Oh, you'll do well to wash your feet before you go back to bed, miss.
I'm not going back to bed.
Oh, don't be a fool. You get some sleep. Oh, where have you been, you wicked girl?
No, not wicked.
Well, you went out to meet somebody, didn't you? Now deny that if you can.
Yes, I went out to meet someone.
Lover.
Yes, I have a lover.
Well, that's very nice now, isn't it? You were the daughter of a king running out to meet lovers. We work our fingers to the bone for you. We slave to bring you up like young ladies, but you're all alike, all of you. Oh, even you, who never used to stop to primp in front of a looking glass or smear your mouth with rouge. How many times I'd say to myself, now that one, now, oh, I wish she was a little more of a coquette. Always wearing the same dress and your hair tumbling around your face. Oh, one thing sure, I'd say. None of the boys will ever look at her when his mania is about. I'll have that one on my hands for the rest of my life. Now, you see, you're just like your sister, after all. You're worse. You're a hypocrite. And your Uncle Creon will hear about this. That I promise you.
Yes, Uncle Creon will hear of this.
Mm-hmm. And we'll hear what he has to say when he finds out you go wandering alone o' nights. Not to mention Haman. The girl's engaged. She's going to be married. She hops out of bed at 4 in the morning to meet somebody in a field.
Nanny, I'd like to be alone.
If I so much as speak of it, she says she wants to be alone.
Please don't scold, please. This isn't a day when you should be losing your temper.
Not scold, indeed. Along with the rest of it, I'm to like it. Didn't I promise your poor mother? Oh, what would she say if she was here? Old stupid. That's what she'd call me, your mother. Old stupid. Not to know how to keep my little girls pure. Snoring in your bed and letting them slip off into the bushes. That's what she'd say, your mother. Oh, and I'd stand there, dying of shame. Oh, if I wasn't dead already, I wouldn't dare look her in the face. That's true, I'd say. Oh, that's true, all that you say, Your Majesty.
Oh, Nanny, Nanny, you'll be able to face Mama when it's your time to see her, sure. And she'll say, good morning, Nanny. Thank you for my little Antigone. You did look after her so well. She knows why I went out this morning.
Not to meet a lover?
No, not to meet a lover.
Oh, you have a very queer way of teasing me, I must say. Not to know when she's teasing me. Oh, I must be getting pretty old, huh? That's what it is. Oh, if you loved me, you'd tell me the truth. You'd tell me why your bed was empty when I went along to tuck you in, no? Wouldn't you?
Nanny, my sweet red apple. Oh, Nanny. You remember how I used to rub your cheeks to make them shine? Oh, I didn't do anything tonight that was worth sending tears down the little gullies of your dear face. I am pure. And I swear that I have no other lover than Haman. If you wish, Nanny, I'll swear that I shall never have any other lover than Haman. Save your tears. You may still need them. You see, when you cry like this, I become a little girl again, and I mustn't be a little girl today. Antigone, what are you doing up at this hour? I've just been to your room.
The two of you now. You're both going mad to be up before the kitchen fires are started. Do you think that's decent for the daughters of a king? With nothing on and the sun's not up. I'll have you both on my hands with colds before I know it.
Nanny, it's not chilly, really. Summer's here. Why don't you go and make us some coffee? I'd love some coffee. It would do me so much good.
That poor baby. Now her head's swimming because she hasn't anything in her stomach. I stand here like an idiot. I could be getting her something hot to drink.
Aren't you well? Oh, yes. It's just that I'm a little tired. I got up too early.
I couldn't sleep either.
Oh, you shouldn't go without your beauty sleep, Miss Maney.
In front of me?
I'm not. Oh, truly, I'm not. This special morning, seeing how beautiful you are makes everything easier for me. What a nasty little girl I used to be, remember? I used to fling mud at you and put worms down your
Why
neck.
do you insist upon talking about other things?
I'm not talking about other things.
Antigone, I thought about it a lot.
Have you?
I thought about it all night long. Antigone, you're mad.
Am I?
We cannot do it.
Why not?
Creon will have us put to death.
Of course he will. That's what he's here for. He will do what he has to do, and we will do what we have to do. He's bound to put us to death, and we are bound to go out and bury our brother. That's the way it is. What do you think we can do to change it?
I don't want to die.
Well, I'd prefer not to die myself.
Listen to me, Antigone. I thought about it all night. I'm older than you are. I always think things through. You're so impulsive. You get a notion in your head and you jump up and do the thing straight off, whereas I think things out.
Sometimes it's better not to think too much.
I don't agree with you. Listen, I know it's horrible. I know Polynices was cheated out of his rights, that he made war, that Creon sided against him, that he was killed. And I pity Polynices just as much as you do. But all the same, I sort of see what Uncle Creon means.
I don't want to sort of see anything.
Creon is king. He has to set an example.
I am not the king, and I don't have to set people examples. Creon orders that our brother rot and putrefied and be mangled by dogs and birds of prey, and you talk about examples.
There you go, frowning, wanting your own stubborn way in everything. Listen to me. I'm right oftener than you are.
I don't want to be right.
At least you can try to understand.
Understand? First word I ever heard out of any of you was that word, understand. Now, why didn't I understand that I mustn't play with water? Cold, black, beautiful, flowing water. Because I'd spill it on the palace tiles. Or earth, Ismene, earth. Because earth dirties a little girl's frock. Understand. Only understand that there's a man rotting, unburied, and that he's my brother, and that he must be buried.
Creon won't let us bury him. He's stronger than we are, Antigone. He's the king, and the whole city is with him.
I'm not listening to you.
You must. You know how Creon works. His mob will come running, howling as they run. 1,000 arms will seize our arms. 1,000 breaths will breathe into our faces. Like one single pair of eyes, 1,000 eyes will stare at us. We'll be driven in a tumbrel through their hatred, through the smell of them and their cruel, roaring laughter. We'll be dragged to the scaffold for torture, surrounded by guards with their idiot faces all bloated, their animal hands clean washed for the sacrifice, their beefy eyes squinting as they stare at us. And we'll know that no shrieking and no begging will make them understand that we want to live. For they're like trained beasts who go through the motions they've been taught without caring about right or wrong. And we'll suffer. We'll feel pain rising in us until it becomes so unbearable we know it must stop. But it won't stop. It'll go on rising and rising like a screaming voice. I can't. Can't, Antigone.
How well you've thought it all out.
I thought about it all night long, didn't you?
Yes.
I'm an awful coward, Antigone.
So am I. But what has that to do with it?
But Antigone, don't you want to go on living?
Go on living?
Yes.
Go on living? Who wept when she was little because there were too many grasses in the meadow, too many creatures in the field for her to know and touch them all?
Antigone, be reasonable. It's all very well for men to believe in ideas and die for them. But you're a girl. Antigone, you have everything in the world to make you happy. You're young, you're beautiful.
I'm not beautiful.
Oh, yes, you are. Well, not the way other girls are, maybe, but it's always you that the tough little boys turn and look back at when they pass us in the street.
Little boys.
And what about Haman?
I shall see Haman this morning. I'll take care of Haman. Ismene, go to bed now. The sun is coming up and there's nothing I can do today. Come on, go to bed.
What are you going to do?
Come, my doves, come to your breakfast.
If I do, promise me you won't leave the house.
All right, I promise.
Come along.
I'm not really hungry, Nanny.
My darling. Where's the pain?
Nowhere. Oh, but you must keep me warm and safe. The way you used to do when I was small. Nanny. Stronger than all fever. Stronger than any nightmare. Stronger than the night itself. Nanny, stronger than death. Your hand. Oh, as if I were ill in bed and you sitting beside me.
My lamb. Now, what is it that's eating your heart out?
Nothing. Nothing. It's just that I'm a little young still for what I have to go through. But nobody but you must know that, Nanny.
You're young for what, my kitten?
Nothing in particular, just all this. So good that you're here. You're very powerful, Nanny.
What is it you want me to do for you, my
There
baby?
isn't anything to do, except put your hand like this against my cheek. promise me you won't scold her again.
Even if she makes pee-pee on the floor?
Just the same, promise me. And promise me that you'll talk to her.
Me talk to a dog?
Mm-hmm. But mind you, you're not to talk to her the way people usually talk to dogs. You're to talk to her the way I talk to her.
I don't see why both of us should make fools of ourselves. As long as you're here, one of us ought to be enough.
And Nanny,
Hmm?
if she got too unhappy, you know, if she moaned and moaned waiting for me all day, well, then the best thing, Nanny, might be to have her put to sleep.
What's got into you today? Can't sleep, you won't eat, now you want to have your dog killed.
Nanny, Heyman is here. Don't forget that you've promised me. Heyman. Heyman. Forgive me for quarreling with you last night. It was all my fault. Do you forgive me?
You know I've already forgiven you. Huh. You'd hardly slammed the door. Your perfume still hung in the room when I'd already forgiven you. You stole that perfume. From whom?
Ismene.
And, the rouge and the face powder and the dress, from whom did you steal them?
Ismene.
In whose honor did you get yourself up so elegantly?
I'll tell you everything, Heyman. Oh, what a fool I was to waste a whole evening, a whole beautiful evening.
We'll have other evenings, darling.
Maybe we won't.
Ah, and other quarrels, too. A happy love is full of quarrels, you know.
A happy love, yes. Heyman.
Yes.
Listen to me.
Yes?
No, don't laugh at me this morning. Be serious. Heyman.
I am serious.
And hold me tight. Tighter than you've ever held me before. I want all of your strength to flow into me.
There with all my strength.
Yeah, that's good. Heyman.
Yes?
You know the little boy we were going to have when we were married?
Yes, darling.
I'd have protected him against everything in the world.
Yes.
Oh, but you don't know how I would have held him in my arms and given him my strength. He wouldn't have been afraid of anything, I swear he wouldn't. His mother wouldn't have been very imposing. Her hair wouldn't have always been brushed, but she would have been very strong where he was concerned. You believe that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And Heyman, you believe me when I say that you would have had a real wife.
Darling, you are my real wife.
You loved me, huh? You did love me that night, didn't you?
What night?
You're sure that that night at the dance when you came to the corner where I was sitting, there was no mistake? It was me you were looking for. It wasn't another girl. And Heyman, you are very sure that never, not in your most secret heart of hearts, have you said to yourself that it was Ismene you ought to have asked to marry you?
Antigone, you're being idiotic. You might give me credit for knowing my own mind. It's you I love. No one else.
You love me as a woman, don't you? As a woman wants to be loved, don't you? Oh, those arms around me, they're not lying, are they? This warmth that's in me, this feeling that I'm safe, secure, they're not lies, are they?
Darling, I love you exactly as you love me, with all of myself.
Heyman, look at me. I'm scrawny, I'm sallow. Ismene is pink and gold, and she's like a fruit.
Antigone.
I'm ashamed of myself, but this morning, this special morning, I must know. Please tell me the truth. Heyman, when you think of me, when it strikes you suddenly that I am going to belong to you, do you get this feeling that a great empty space is being hollowed out inside you? That something inside you is just dying?
Yes, I do.
You do. I have two things more to tell you. And when I've told them to you, you must go away instantly without asking any questions. Swear that you will.
What are these things that you're going to ask me?
Swear first, Haman, that you will go away without one word, without so much as looking at me. It's the last mad wish that you will ever have to grant me.
I swear it since you insist, but I must tell you that I don't like this at all.
It's very serious. Now, first about last night when I came to your house. You asked me a moment ago why I wore Ismeni's dress and rouge. I was stupid, you see. I wasn't very sure that you loved me as a woman, and I did it because I wanted you to want me.
Was that the reason?
Yes.
Antigone.
And you laughed at me, and we quarreled, and my awful temper got the better of me, and I flung out of the house. Well, the real reason was that I wanted you to take me. I wanted to be your wife before.
Antigone.
You said you wouldn't ask any questions. You swore. Now, I'll tell you why. I wanted to be your wife last night because I love you. And also because I'm going to cause you quite a lot of pain, Haman. I did it because I shall never, never be able to marry you. Never. Go! You took a solemn oath. You swore. Go away. The whole thing will be clear to you tomorrow. It's the only thing left that you can do for me if you still love me. Go away. Well, it's over for Haman. Antigone. I can't sleep. I'm terrified. I'm so afraid that even though it's daylight, you'll still try to bury Polynices. Antigone, we all want to make you happy. We love you. We're alive. We need you. You remember what Polynices was like? Oh, he was our brother, but he never loved you. He was a bad brother. He was like an enemy in this house. He never thought of you. Why should you think of him? Oh, what if he does have to lie rotting in a field? It's Creon's doing, not ours. Don't try to change things. Antigone, you can't bury Polynices. I won't let you. You are too late, Ismene. When you first saw me this morning, I had just come in from burying him.
Private Jonas, 2nd Battalion.
What are you doing here?
Well, it's like this, Chief. As soon as it happened, we said, you gotta tell the Chief about this before anybody else spills it. He'll want to know right away. So we flipped a coin to see which one would come up here and tell you about it, sir. Well, it's like this, sir. We figured that only one man had better come, because after all, you don't want to leave the body without a guard, right? I mean, there are 3 of us on duty guarding the body.
What's wrong about the body?
Chief, I've been in the service 17 years. Volunteer, wounded 3 times. 2 mentions. My record's clean. I know my business, and I know my place. I carry out orders. Chief, you ask any officer in this battalion, they'll tell you. Leave it to Jonas. Give him an order. He'll carry it out. That's what they'll tell you, sir.
What's the matter with you, man? What are you shaking for?
Why, sir, by rights, it's a corporal's job. I've been recommended for the corporal, but it hasn't come through yet. June, who was supposed to come
Stop chattering and tell me why you were here. If anything has gone wrong, I'll break all 3 of you.
Chief, nobody can say that we didn't keep an eye on that body. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. The tough watch, sir. Well, you know what it's like. It's nearly the end of the night. Your eyes are like lead. You got a crick in the back of your neck. I mean, 17 years in that service. Though we was doing our duty all right. Anybody says that we was asleep is a liar. First place was too cold. Second, yes, Chief. I turn around and look at the body. We wasn't maybe only 10 feet away from it. But that's what I'm like. I was keeping my eye on it. Chief, I was the first one to see it. Me, they'll tell you. I was the one that let out that yell.
What for? What was the matter?
Still the body. Somebody had been there and buried it. Well, it wasn't much, sir, you understand. With us 3 there, it couldn't have been. Just covered over with a little dirt, that's all. But enough to hide it from the buzzards.
There couldn't have been a dog scratching up the earth.
Well, not a chance, sir. That's kind of what we hoped it was. But the earth was scattered over the body just like the priests tell you that you should do it.
Whoever did that job really knew what he was doing, all right.
Who could have dared? Was there anything to indicate who might have done it?
I think so. Maybe we heard a footstep. I can't swear to it. Of course, we started in the search right away, and the corporal found a shovel, a kid shovel, no bigger than that, all rusty and everything. Corporal's got the shovel for you. We think maybe a kid did it.
A kid. I broke the back of this rebellion, and like a snake, it is coming together again. Polynices and his friends with their gold, the leaders of the mob, temple priests always ready for a little fishing in troubled waters. I can imagine what he's like, their kid. Baby-faced killer creeping through the night with a toy shovel under his jacket. Why shouldn't they have corrupted a real child? Oh, very touching. Very useful to the party. An innocent child, a martyr. A real white-faced baby of 14 who will spit with contempt at the guard who kills him. Precious, innocent blood of a child on my hands. Must have accomplices in the guard itself. Look here, you. Who knows about this?
Only us three, Chief. We flipped the coin and I came right over.
Right, now listen to me. You three will continue on duty. When the relief squad comes up, you will send them back to barracks. You'll uncover the body. If another attempt is made to bury it, I expect you to make an arrest and bring the person straight to me. And you will keep your mouth shut about this. You won't say a word about this to a living soul. You're all guilty of neglect of duty, and you will be punished. But if the rumor spreads through Thebes that that body received burial, you will be shot, all three of you.
Chief, we never told nobody. I swear we didn't. Anyway, I've been up here. Well, suppose my pals pull it to the relief. I couldn't have been with them in here, too. That would be my fault if they talked. Chief, I got 2 kids. Show my witness. It couldn't have been me. I've been here with you. I got a witness.
All right, clear out of here. If the story doesn't get around, you won't be shot. Child. Boy. Would you defy me with your little shovel? Of course you would. You would do it too. Child.
And now the spring is wound up tight. It will uncoil of itself. That is what is so convenient in tragedy. The least little turn of the wrist will do the job. Anything will set it going. The feeling when you wake up on a fine morning that you'd like a little respect paid to you today? As if it were as easy to order as a second cup of coffee. One question too many idly thrown out over a friendly drink, and the tragedy is on. The rest is automatic. You don't need to lift a finger. The machine is in perfect order. It has been oiled since time began, and it runs without friction. Death, treason, sorrow are on the march. And they move in the wake of storm, of tears, of stillness. Every kind of stillness. The hush when the executioner's axe goes up at the end of the last act. The silence inside you when the roaring crowd acclaims the winner. So that you think of a film without a soundtrack. Mouths agape and no sound coming out of them. A clamor that is nothing more than a picture. And you, the victor, already vanquished, alone. In the desert of your silence. That is tragedy. Tragedy is firm. It's clean. It's flawless. It has nothing to do with melodrama. Death in a melodrama is really horrible because it's never inevitable. But In a tragedy, where nothing is in doubt, everyone's destiny is known. And that makes for tranquility. You see, tragedy is restful. And the reason is that hope, that foul, deceitful thing, has no part in it. There is no hope. You're trapped. The whole sky is falling down upon you. And all you can do about it is to shout. And don't mistake me, I said shout. I did not say groan, whimper, complain. That you cannot do. All you can do is shout aloud. You can say all of those things you never thought you'd had it in you to say or never knew you could say. Of course, it won't do any good, but you can say them for their own sake. See, in a melodrama, you argue and struggle in the hope of escape. But in a tragedy, where there is no temptation to escape, argument is gratuitous. It's kingly. Melodrama is vulgar. The tragedy is on. Antigone has been caught. For the first time in her life, little Antigone is going to be able to be herself.
Tell them to let me go. I won't run away. My father was King Oedipus. I'm Antigone.
Yeah. King Oedipus' little girl. Listen, lady, the night watch never picks up lady by this, so you better be careful. I'm sleeping with the police commissioner. Come on. Miss, give it a rest. The chief will be here any minute. You can tell him about it.
Hurting my arms. Take your dirty hands off me.
Dirty hands? Take a look at your own hands. Lost your shovel, huh? Had to go at it with your fingernails the second time, huh? My God, I never saw such nerve. I turned my back for 5 seconds. There she is, clawing away like a hyena. Oh, she got all her marbles.
I picked up a nut like that the other day. Right in the main square she was, hoisting up her skirts and showing her behind to anybody who wanted to look.
Hey, listen. We're going to get a bonus out of this.
Hey, what do you say we throw a party, just the three of us?
Hey, who would have thought an hour ago that us three would be talking about throwing a party now? Or the way I felt when the old man was interrogating me. I want to tell you, I was scared.
Are you sure we're going to get a bonus?
Oh, yeah, something tells me this is big stuff.
I should like to sit down, if you please.
All right, let her sit down, but keep hold of her. Pinch up!
Antigone. Take those handcuffs off. What is this?
The watch, sir. We all came this time.
Who's guarding the body?
We sent for the relief.
I gave orders the relief was to return to barracks and stay there. I told you not to open your mouth about this.
Nobody said anything, sir. We made this arrest and brought the party in the way you said we should.
Where did these men find you?
Right by the body.
What were you doing by the body? You knew what my orders were?
What was she doing? Why, sir, that's why we brought her in. She was digging up the dirt with both hands. She's trying to cover up the body all over again.
You realize what you were saying?
Sir, ask these men here. After I reported to you, I went back, and the first thing we did, we uncovered the body. The sun was coming up, and it was beginning to smell. So I moved it on a little rise, just to, get him in the wind. You wouldn't expect any trouble in broad daylight, right? But just the same, we figured that one man had better keep his eye peeled all the time. Well, about noon, what with the sun and the smell, and as Willie had dropped, and I wasn't feeling none too good myself, I went over to my pal to get a chew. I no sooner had time to stick it in my mouth and say, thanks, I turn around, there she is, clawing away the dirt with both hands, right in broad daylight.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true.
We scraped away the dirt from the body as quick as we can, and then we sent for the relief and posted them. And we didn't say a thing to them, sir. And we brought the party in so as you can see her, and that's the truth, so help me God.
Was it you the first time in the night?
Yes, it was. With a toy shovel we used to take to the seashore when we were children. It was Paul and Icy's own shovel. That was why I left it with him.
She was clawing away like a wild animal. As a matter of fact, what with the heat haze and everything, my pal says, that's a dog. Dog, I says, that's a girl. And it was.
All right, very well. Show these men out into the anteroom. You three men wait outside. I may want a report from you later on.
Do I put the cuffs back on her, sir?
No. Had you told anybody what you intended to do?
No.
Did you meet anybody on the way, coming or going?
Nobody.
You sure of that?
Perfectly sure.
Very well, now listen to me. You go straight to your room. You get there, you go to bed. You say that you're not well and that you have not been out since yesterday. The nurse will tell the same story. And I'll get rid of those 3 men.
Uncle Creon, there's no reason to kill those 3 guards. You must know that I'll do it all over again tonight.
Why did you try to bury your brother?
I owed it to him.
I had forbidden it.
I owed it to him. Those who are not buried wander eternally and find no rest. If my brother were alive and he came home weary after a long day's hunting, I should kneel down and unlace his boots. I should fetch him food and drink. I should see that his bed was ready for him. Polynices is home from the hunt. I owe it to him to unlock the house of the dead in which my father and my mother are waiting to welcome him. Polynices has earned his rest.
Polynices was a rebel and a traitor, and you know it.
He was my brother.
You heard my edict. It was proclaimed throughout Thebes. You read the edict. It was posted up on the city walls.
Yes, I did.
You knew the punishment I decreed for anyone who attempted to give him burial.
Yes, I knew the punishment.
Did you by any chance act on the assumption that a daughter of Oedipus's stubborn pride, was above the law?
No, I did not act on that assumption.
Because if you had acted on that assumption, Antigone, you would have been deeply wrong. Nobody has a more sacred obligation to obey the law than those who make the law. You were a daughter of lawmakers, a daughter of kings, Antigone. You must observe the law.
Had I been a scullery maid washing my dishes when that law was read out loud to me, I should have scrubbed the greasy water from my arms and gone out in my apron to bury my brother.
What nonsense. If you had been a scullery maid, there wouldn't have been any doubt in your mind about the seriousness of that edict. You would have known that it meant death, and you would have been satisfied to weep for your brother in your kitchen. But you thought, because you come from the royal line, because you're my niece and we're going to marry my son, that I wouldn't dare have you killed.
You're mistaken. I never doubted for an instant that you would have me put to death.
Pride of Oedipus. Oedipus and his headstrong pride all over again. I can see your father in you, and I believe you. Of course you thought I would have you killed. Proud as you are, it seemed the natural climax in your existence. Your father was like that. For him, as for you, human happiness was meaningless, and mere human misery wasn't enough to satisfy his passion for torment. You come of people for whom the human vestment is a kind of straitjacket. It cracks at the seams. You spend your lives wriggling to get out of it. Nothing less than a cozy tea party with death and destiny will quench your thirst. The happiest hour of your father's life came when he listened greedily to the story of how, unknown to himself, he had killed his own father and dishonored the bed of his own mother. Drop by drop, word by word, he drank in the dark tale that the gods destined him first to live and then to hear. How avidly men and women drink the brew of such a tale when their names are Oedipus and Antigone. And it's so simple afterwards to do what your father did, to put his eyes out and take his daughter begging on the highway. Let me tell you, Antigone, those days are over for Thebes. Thebes has a right to a king without a past. My name, thank God, is only Creon. And I stand here with both feet firm on the ground and both hands in my pockets. And I have decided that as long as I am the king, being less ambitious than your father, that I shall devote myself merely to introducing a little order into this absurd kingdom, if that is possible. Don't think that being a king seems to me to be romantic. It is my trade, a trade a man has to work at every day of his life. And like every other trade, it isn't all beer and skittles. But since it's my trade, I take it seriously. And if tomorrow some wild and bearded messenger walks in here from some wild and distant valley, which is what happened to your dad, and tells me that he's not quite sure who my parents are, but he thinks that my wife Eurydice is actually my mother, I shall ask him to do me the kindness to go back where he came from. And I won't let a little matter like that persuade me to order my wife to take a blood test and the police to let me know whether or not my birth certificate was forged. Kings, my girl, have other things to do than to surrender themselves to their private feelings. Hand you over to be killed. No. I have other plans for you. You are going to marry Haman. And I want you to fatten up a little bit so you can give him a sturdy boy. Let me assure you that Thebes needs that boy a good deal more than it needs your death. Now you'll go back to your room. You'll do as I said, and you won't say a word about this to anybody. Don't fret about the guards. I'll see that their mouths are shut. And don't look at me annihilatingly with those eyes of yours. I know you think I'm a brute, and I know you can think me very prosaic. But the fact is, Antigone, that I've always been very fond of you. Stubborn though you always were. Don't forget, the first doll you ever had came from me. Where are you going?
You know very well where I'm going.
What sort of a game are you playing?
I am not playing games.
Antigone, do you realize that if, apart from those 3 guards, a single soul finds out what you have tried to do, it will be impossible for me to avoid putting you to death? Now, there's still a chance I can save you, but only if you keep this to yourself and give up this crazy purpose. 5 minutes more and it will be too late. Do you understand that?
I must go and bury my brother. Those men uncovered him.
What good will it do? You know there are other men standing guard over Polynices. And even if you did cover him over with earth again, the earth would again be removed.
I know that. But that much at least I can do. And what a person can do, a person ought to do.
Tell me something, Antigone. Do you really believe all that flummery about religious burial? Do you really believe that a so-called shade of your brother is condemned to wander forever homeless if a little earth isn't flung on his corpse to the accompaniment of some priestly abracadabra? Have you ever watched the priests of Thebes swallowing half their words, skipping half the ritual required, hustling the dead into their graves out of fear that they might be late for their lunch?
Yes, I've seen all that.
Did you never say to yourself as you watched them that if somebody you really loved lay dead under their ministrations, you would scream aloud and beg the priest to leave the dead in peace?
Yes, I've thought all that.
Would you still insist on being put to death? Merely because I refused to let your brother go out with that grotesque passport? Which you would have been the first to be embarrassed by if I'd allowed it? The whole thing is absurd.
Yes, it's absurd.
Well, then why, Antigone, why? To raise people against me?
No.
And for whom?
For nobody. For myself. For me.
You must want very much to die. You look like a trapped animal.
Stop feeling sorry for me. Do as I do. Do your job, and do it quickly. That's all I ask of you. I won't be able to hold out forever.
I want to save you, Antigone.
You're the king, but that you cannot do.
You think not?
Neither save me nor stop me.
Prideful Antigone, little Oedipus.
Only this can you do. Have me put to death.
Have you tortured, perhaps?
Why would you do that? To see me cry? To hear me beg for mercy or swear whatever you wish and then begin over again?
Now, you listen to me. You have cast me for the villain in this little piece of yours, and yourself as the heroine, and you know it, you damn little mischief maker. But don't you drive me too far. If I was one of your preposterous little tyrants that Greece is so full of now, you would be lying in a ditch this minute with your tongue pulled out and your body drawn and quartered. But you can see something in me that makes me hesitate to send for the guards. Instead, I let you go on arguing, and you taunt me. You take the offensive. What are you driving at, you little wretch?
Let me go. You're hurting my arm.
I will not let you go.
Oh!
I was a fool to waste words. I should have done this right from the beginning. And maybe your uncle, but we're not a particularly affectionate family, are we? What fun we're having to spit in the face of an all-powerful king, a man who's done his own killing in his time, but who is still soft enough to go to all this trouble to keep you from being killed,
Now you're squeezing my arm too tightly. It doesn't hurt anymore.
I shall save you yet. God knows I have things enough to do today without wasting time on an insect like you. There's plenty to do, believe me, when you've just put down a revolution. But I am not going to let politics be the cause of your death. For it is a fact that this whole business is nothing but politics. The mournful shade of Polynices, the sentimental weeping, and the hysteria that you mistake for heroism. Politics, nothing but politics. Look here, I may be soft, but I am fastidious. I like things clean, ship-shape, well scrubbed. Don't think I'm not just as offended as you are at the thought of that meat rotting out there in the sun. In the evening, when the breeze comes in off the sea, you can smell it, and it nauseates me. But I refuse even to shut my window. It's vile. And I can tell you what I couldn't tell anybody else. It's stupid. It is monstrously stupid. But the people of Thebes are going to have their noses rubbed into it a little bit longer. My God, if it was up to me, I should have had them bury your brother long ago as a mere matter of public hygiene. If the feather-headed rabble I govern is to understand what's what, that stench has to fill the town for a month.
You are a loathsome man.
I agree. My trade forces me to be. We can argue whether or not I ought to follow my trade, but once I take it on, I do it properly.
Why do you do it at all?
My dear, I woke up one morning and found myself king of Thebes. God knows there were things I loved in life more than power.
Well, then you should have said no.
Yes, I could have said no. I could have said no, only I thought that would be cowardly. I would have been like a workman that refuses to take on a job that has to be done, so I said yes.
Well, I didn't say yes. I can say no to anything I think vile, and I don't have to count the cost. But because you said yes, all you can do now, for all your crown and your trappings and your guards, all you can do is have me killed.
Listen to me.
If I want to, Creon, I don't have to listen to you if I don't want to. You've said your yes. There's nothing more you can tell me that I don't know. You stand there, drinking in my words. Why is it you don't call your guards? I'll tell you why. You want to hear me out to the end, that's why.
You amuse me.
No, I don't. I frighten you. That's why you talk about saving me. It would all be so much easier if you had a docile, tongue-tied Antigone living in the palace. I'll tell you something, Uncle Creon. I'll give you back one of your own words. You're too fastidious to be a good tyrant. But you're going to have to put me to death today, and you know it. And that's what frightens you. God, is there anything uglier than a frightened man?
Very well, I'm afraid then. Does that satisfy you? I'm afraid that if you insist upon it, I shall have to have you put to death, and I don't want to.
Well, I don't have to do things that I don't want to do. If it comes to that, you didn't really want to leave my brother's body unburied, did you? Say it. Admit that you didn't.
I said so already.
But you did it. And now, though you don't want to do it, you're going to have me killed. And you call that being a king?
Yes, I call that being a king.
Creon, my nails are broken, my fingers are bleeding, my arms are covered with the welts left by the paws of your guards, but I am a queen.
Well, then have pity on me and live. Isn't your brother's corpse rotting under my windows payment enough for peace and order in Thebes? My son loves you. Don't make me add your life to the payment. I've paid enough.
No. You've said yes. You've made yourself king. Now you will never stop paying.
God in heaven, won't you try to understand me? I'm trying to understand you. Somebody had to say yes. There had to be one man who agreed to captain the ship. She was loaded to the waterline with crime, with ignorance, with poverty. The wheel was swinging with the wind. The crew refused to work and was losing the cargo. The officers were building a raft ready to slip overboard and desert the ship. Every man Jack on board was ready to drown, and only because the only thing they thought of was their own skins and their cheap little day-to-day traffic. Was that a time, do you think, for a man to be playing with words like yes and no? Was that a time to be weighing the pros and cons, wondering if he wasn't going to lose his life or pay too dearly later on, his family or his touch with his fellow men? You grab the wheel. You right the ship in the face of a mountain of water. You shout an order, and if one man refuses to obey, you shoot straight into the mob. Into the mob, I say. The beasts, as nameless as the whipping wind. The thing that drops when you shoot may be somebody who poured you a drink the night before, but it has no name. And you, braced at the wheel, you have no name either. There is only the ship and the storm. Now do you understand?
I'm not here to understand. I'm here to say no to you and die.
It's so easy to say no.
Not always.
It's easy to say no. To say yes, you have to sweat, you have to roll up your sleeves and plunge both hands into life up to the elbows. It's easy to say no, even if saying no means death. All you have to do is sit still and wait. Wait to go on living, wait to be killed. That's the coward's part. No is one of your man-made words. Can you imagine a world in which trees say no to the sap? In which beasts say no to hunger or to propagation? Animals are good, simple, tough. They move in droves, all nudging one another onwards, all traveling the same road. Some of them keel over, but the rest go on. And no matter how many may fall by the wayside, there are always those few left who go on, bringing their young into the world, traveling the same road with the same obstinate will, unchanged from those who went before.
Animals, eh, Creon? What a king you could be if only men were animals.
You despise me, don't you? Strange. Again and again I have imagined having this conversation with a pale young man I have never seen in the flesh. He would have come to assassinate me, and he would have failed. And I would be trying to get from him why he wanted to kill me. With all my powers of logic and debate, all that I could get out of him would be that he despised me. Who would have imagined that the white-faced boy would turn out to be you? And that the debate would arise out of something so meaningless as your brother's burial. And yet, you are going to hear me out. My part may not be a heroic one, but I will play my part. I will have you put to death. But before I do, I want to make one last appeal to you. I want to know if you know what you're doing as well as I know what I am doing. Antigone, do you know what you are dying for? Do you know the sordid story to which you are going to sign your name in blood for all time to come?
What story?
The story of Eteocles and Polynices, the story of your brothers. You think you know it, but you don't. Nobody in Thebes knows that story but me. And it seems to me this afternoon you have a right to know it too. It isn't a pretty story. You'll see. But tell me something first. What do you remember about your brothers? They were older than you, so they must have looked down on you. And I imagine they tormented you. They pulled your pigtails, broke your dolls, whispered secrets to each other to put you into a rage.
They were big and I was small.
And later, when they came home wearing evening clothes and smoking cigarettes, they wouldn't have anything to do with you, but you thought they were wonderful.
They were boys. I was a girl.
You didn't know why exactly, but you knew they were making your mother very unhappy. You saw her in tears over them, and your father would fly into a rage because of them. They came home slamming doors, laughing noisily in the corridors, insolent, spineless, unruly, smelling of drink.
Once it was very early, and we just got up. I saw them coming home. Polynices was very pale and his eyes were shining. He saw me and said, "Here, this is for you." And he gave me a big paper flower that he'd brought home from his night out.
Yeah, of course, you still have that flower. And last night, just before you crept out, you opened up a drawer and looked at it for a time to give yourself courage.
How do you...
Poor Antigone. With her nightclub flower. Do you know what your brother was?
Whatever he was, I know that you're going to say vile things about him.
A cheap, idiotic bounder, that's what he was. A cruel, vicious little voluptuary. A little beast with just wit enough to drive a car faster and throw more money away than any of his pals. I was with your father one day when Polynices, having lost a lot of money gambling, asked him to settle the debt. And when your father refused, the boy raised his hand to him and he called him a vile name.
That's a lie.
He raised his hand to him and he struck him in the face with his fist. It was pitiful. My father sat at his desk with his head in his hands. His nose was bleeding. He was weeping with anguish. And Polynices stood in a corner, sneering and lighting a cigarette.
That's a lie.
When did you last see Polynices alive? When you were 12. Now, that's true, isn't it?
Yes, that's true.
Now you know why. Oedipus was too chicken-hearted to have the boy locked up. Polynices was allowed to go off and join the Argive army. And as soon as he reached Argos, the attempts on your father's life began. On the life of an old man who couldn't make up his mind to die, couldn't bear to be parted with his kingship. One after another, men slipped into Thebes from Argos for the purpose of assassinating him. And every killer we caught always ended by confessing who put him up to it, who paid him to try it. And it wasn't only Polynices either. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I want you to know what went on in the back room, in the kitchen of politics. I want you to know what took place in the wings of this drama that you're burning to play a part in. Yesterday, I gave Eteocles a state funeral with pomp and honors. Today, Eteocles is a saint and a hero in the eyes of all Thebes. Well, what else could I have done? People had taken sides in the civil war. Both sides couldn't be wrong. That would be too much. I couldn't make people swallow that truth. And this is exactly the point of my story. Eteocles, that virtuous brother, was just as rotten as Polynices. That great-hearted son had done his best, too, to procure the assassination of your father. That loyal prince had also offered to sell out Thebes to the highest bidder. Funny, isn't it? Polynices lies rotting in the sun, and Eteocles is given a hero's funeral, yet I have absolute proof that everything Polynices did, Eteocles had plotted to do too. They were a pair of blackguards, both engaged in selling out each other, and they died like the cheap gangsters they were over a division of the spoils. But, as I told you, I had to make a martyr of one of them. I sent out to the Holocaust for the bodies. They were found clasped in one another's arms for the first time in their lives, I imagine. Each one had been spitted on the other's sword, and the Argive cavalry had trampled them down. They were mashed to a pulp, Antigone. I had the prettier of the two carcasses dressed up, and I gave it a state funeral, and I left the other one to rot. I don't know which was which. And I assure you, I don't care.
Why'd you tell me all this?
Would it have been better to let you die a victim to that obscene story?
It might have been. I had my faith.
What are you going to do now?
I shall go up to my room.
Don't stay there alone. Go and find Haman and get married quickly, Antigone. All this is beside the point. You have your whole life ahead of you, and life is a treasure. You are going to throw it away. Don't think me fatuous if I tell you that I understand you, and that at your age I would have done the same thing. A minute ago you said, when we were quarreling, that I was drinking in your words. I was. But it wasn't you I was listening to. It was to a young boy named Creon who lived here in Thebes many years ago. He was pale and thin the way you are. His mind, too, was filled with thoughts of self-sacrifice. Go and find Haman and get married quickly, Antigone. Be happy. Life flows like water, and you young people let it run away through your fingers. Life isn't what you think it is. Life is a child playing around your feet, a tool you hold firmly in your grip, a bench you sit down on in the evening in your garden. People will tell you that that's not life. Life is something else. They tell you that because they want to use your strength and your fire. They want to make use of it. Don't listen to them, Antigone. Believe me, the only poor consolation we have in our old age is to discover that what I have just said to you is true. Life is nothing more than the happiness that you get out of it.
Happiness?
Yes. That isn't much of a word, is it?
What kind of happiness do you foresee for me? Paint me the picture of your happy Antigone. What are the unimportant little sins that I shall have to commit before I'm allowed to sink my teeth into life and tear happiness from it? Tell me, to whom shall I have to lie? Upon whom shall I have to fawn? To whom must I sell myself? Whom do you want me to leave dying while I turn away my eyes?
Antigone, be quiet.
Oh, but why do you tell me to be quiet when all I want to know is what I have to do to be happy? Right now, Creon, since it's right now that I must make my choice. Now you tell me that life is so wonderful. I want to know what I have to do in order to be able to say that myself.
Do you love Haman?
Yes, I love Haman. The Haman I love is young and strong, faithful and difficult to satisfy, just as I am. But if what I love in Haman is to be worn away like a stone step by the tread of the thing you call life, the thing you call happiness, if Haman reaches the point where he stops growing pale with fear when I grow pale, stops thinking that I must have been killed in an accident when I'm 5 minutes late, stops feeling that he's alone on earth when I laugh and he doesn't know why, if he too has to learn to say yes to everything, well then no. No, I do not love Haman.
You don't know what you're talking about.
I do know what I'm talking about. It's you now who've stopped understanding. I'm talking to you from a kingdom you can't get into now with your quick tongue and your preaching and your logic and your politics. Creon, I see you suddenly as you must have been at 15. Same look of impotence in your face, same inner conviction that there was nothing you couldn't do. What has life added to you, Creon, but that fat on your stomach and those lines in your face?
Antigone, be quiet.
Why do you want me to be quiet? Why? You know I'm right. You can't admit it, of course. You've got to go on growling and defending the bone you call happiness.
Happy, it is your happiness too, you...
I spit on your happiness. I spit on your idea of life. You're all like dogs that lick everything they smell. You with your promise of a humdrum happiness, provided a person doesn't ask too much of life. Well, I want everything of life, and I want it now. I want it total, Creon, complete. Otherwise, I reject it. I will not be moderate, and I will not be satisfied with a bit of cake you offer me if I promise to be a good little girl. No, I want to be sure of everything today. Sure that everything will be as beautiful as when I was a little girl. And if not, I want to die.
Scream on, daughter of Oedipus. Scream on in your father's own voice.
In my father's own voice, yes. We're of the tribe that asks questions, and we ask them to the bitter end until no tiniest chance of hope remains to be strangled by our hands. We're of the tribe that hates your filthy hope, your docile female hope, your whore.
Shut up if you should see how ugly you look screaming.
I am ugly! Father was ugly too. But Father became beautiful. And do you know when? At the very end, when all his questions had been answered, when he could no longer doubt that he had killed his own father, that he had gone to bed with his own mother, when all hope was gone, when he could no longer doubt that nothing could save him, then yes, he was at peace. Then he became beautiful. Whereas you, those faces of yours, you candidates for election to happiness, it's you who are the ugly ones, even the handsomest of you, with that ugly glint in the corner of your eyes, that ugly crease at the corner of your mouths. Oh, Creon, you spoke the word a moment ago, the kitchen of politics, where you look it and you smell it.
I order you to shut up.
You order me?
Yes.
Oh, Cook, do you believe you can give me orders?
Antigone, the anteroom is full of people. You want them to hear you?
Yes, open the doors. Let us make sure that they
By
can't...
God, shut up!
Antigone!
I tell you, shut up!
Antigone!
What do you want?
Antigone, forgive me. I've come back. I'll be brave. I'll go with you now.
Where will you go with me?
Creon, if you kill her, you'll have to kill me too.
No, Ismene, not a bit of it. I die alone. You don't think I'm going to let you die with me after what I've been through? You don't deserve it.
If you die, I don't want to live. I don't want to be left behind, alone.
You chose life and I chose death. You had your chance to come with me in the Black Night, creeping on your hands and knees. You had your chance to claw up the earth as I did, get yourself caught like a thief as I did, and you refused it.
Not anymore. I'll do it alone tonight.
You hear that, Creon? The thing is catching. What are you waiting for? Call your guards, Creon. Come on. Show a little courage. It only hurts for a minute. Come on, you cook.
Guards,
At last, Creon.
take her away.
Oh, no.
Creon!
You're out of your mind, Creon. What have you done?
She had to die.
You must not let Antigone die.
She insisted. No man on earth was strong enough to dissuade her. Death was her purpose, whether she knew it or not. Polynices was a mere pretext.
That's not the truth, Creon. You know it.
What would you have me do for her? Condemn her to live? Haman, forget Antigone. Forget her, dearest boy.
How can you talk like that?
I did everything I could to dissuade her. I used every argument. I swear I did. The girl doesn't love you. She could have gone on living for you, but she refused. She wanted it this way. She wanted to die.
Father, the guards are dragging Antigone away. You've got to stop them.
I cannot. It's too late. Antigone has spoken. I cannot save her now.
Father, you must.
I cannot.
Recall your edict. Bury Polynices.
It's too late. The law must be observed. I cannot save her now.
But, Father, you are master in Thebes.
Under the law, not above the law.
But you made that law yourself. What you ordained, you can repeal. You cannot let Antigone be taken from me.
I cannot do anything else, my dear boy. Antigone must die. And you have to live.
Live, you say? Live a life without Antigone? A life in which I am to go on admiring you as you busy yourself about your kingdom? Make your persuasive speeches, strike your attitudes? Not without Antigone. I love Antigone. I will not live without her.
My dear boy, you must resign yourself to life without Antigone. Sooner or later there comes into every man's life a day of sorrow when he has to put aside childhood and take on the burdens of manhood. That day has come for you.
That giant strength, that courage, that massive God who used to pick me up and hold me in his arms to shelter me from shadows and monsters. Was that you, Father? Was it of you I stood in awe? Was that man you?
Oh, for God's sake, Haman, don't judge me, not you too.
You are not that man today. For if you were, you'd know that your enemies were abroad in every street. You'd know that the people revere those gods whom you despise. You cannot put Antigone to death. She will not have been dead 1 hour before shame will sit on every Theban forehead. Horror will fill every Theban heart. Already the people curse you because you do not bury Polynices. If you kill Antigone, they will hate you.
Silence! That edict stands!
Was it you that arrested me this morning?
Yes, that was me.
You hurt me. There was no need for you to hurt me.
Look, miss, it wasn't my business to bring you in, and I did it.
How old are you?
39.
Do you have any children?
Yes, 2.
Do you love them?
What's that got to do with you?
Have you been in the guard?
Oh, since the war. I was in the army, sergeant. Then I joined the guard, but of course, when you're in the guard, you lose your stripes.
I see.
Yeah. Of course, when you're in the guard, people know that you're something special. They know that you're an old non-com. Now, take pay, for instance. See, when you're in the guard, you get your pay. But on top of that, you get 6 months extra pay to make sure that you don't lose anything by not being a sergeant anymore. That's why sergeants now, they don't like guards. Maybe you noticed, they're always trying to make out like they're better than us. Promotion, that's it. You see, in the army, anybody can get promoted. All you need is good conduct. But in the guard...
Listen.
Yes, miss?
I'm going to die soon.
Well, for instance, people have a lot of respect for guards. They have. Well, a guard may be a soldier, but he's kind of like in the civil service, too.
You think it hurts to die?
How would I know? Of course, if someone stuck a saber in your guts and turned it around, it hurts.
How are they going to put me to death?
Well, I'll tell you. You see, how does it go? In order that our fair city shall not be polluted with her sinful blood, she shall be immured. That means they shove you in the cave and wall up the cave.
I'd like you to give someone a letter from me when I'm dead.
What? A letter?
Yes, I want to write a letter. And I'd like you to give it to someone for me.
Wait. Take it easy. It'll be my job if I go out handing letters from prisoners.
I'll give you this ring if you'll do it.
Oh, no. Nothing to do. Suppose they go through my pockets. I could get 6 months for a thing like that. I'll tell you what I'll do. You tell me what you want to say, and I'll write it down in my notebook. And afterwards, I'll tear out the pages, and I'll send them to the party. Well, if it's in my handwriting, it's okay, see?
In your handwriting? No, it would be awful, you see.
Okay, it's no skin off my nose.
No, keep the ring. Hurry, where's your notebook? Are you ready? My darling.
Oh, the boyfriend, huh?
I wanted to die. And maybe you won't love me anymore.
And maybe you won't love me anymore.
Creon was right. It is terrible to die.
It's terrible.
And I don't even know what I'm dying for.
Wait a minute. How fast do you think I can write? Creon was right. It was... Oh, and I don't know why. What I'm dying for.
No, scratch that out. Nobody must know that. It's as if they saw me naked and touched me after I was dead. Scratch it all out and just write, forgive me.
I cut out everything you said there at the end and I put down, forgive me?
I love you.
I love you. Is that all?
That's all.
Damn funny letter.
I know.
And who's it to?
You don't even know.
Well, it's over for Antigone. Now it's Creon's turn.
The Queen! Where is the Queen?
What have you to tell the Queen? What do you want with the Queen?
News to break her heart. Antigone has just been thrust into the cave. They hadn't finished heaving the last block of stone into place when Creon and the rest heard a sudden moaning from the tomb. A hush came over us all, for it was not the voice of Antigone. It was Haman's voice that came forth from the tomb. Everybody looked at Creon. He howled like a man demanded, take away the stones, take away the stones. The slaves leaped at the wall of stones, and Creon worked with them, sweating and tearing at the blocks with his bleeding hands. Finally, a narrow opening was forced, and into it slipped the smallest guard. Antigone had hanged herself by the cord of a robe, by the red and golden twisted cord of a robe. The cord was around her neck like a child's collar. Haman was on his knees, holding her in his arms and moaning, his face buried in her robe. More stones were removed. Creon went into the tomb. He tried to raise Haman to his feet. I could hear him begging Haman to rise to his feet, but Haman was deaf to his father's voice. Till suddenly, he stood up of his own accord, his eyes dark and burning. Anguish was in his face. It was the face of a little boy. He stared at his father. Then suddenly, he struck him hard and drew his sword. Creon leaped out of range. Haman kept on staring at him, his eyes full of contempt, a glance that would kill like a knife that Creon couldn't escape. The king stood trembling in the far corner of the tomb. Haman kept on staring. Then, without a word, he stabbed himself and lay down beside Antigone, embracing her in a great pool of blood.
I've laid them out side by side. They're together at last. Two lovers on the morrow of their bridal. Their work is done.
But not yours, Creon. You still have one thing to learn. Eurydice, the queen, your wife.
Oh. Queen.
When she heard the news of her son's death, she waited carefully until she'd finished her sewing, then laid it down carefully, as she did everything. Then she went up to her room, her lavender-scented room with its embroidered doilies and the pictures framed in plush. And there, Creon, she cut her throat. She's laid out now exactly where she was the moment you came to see her when she was still a maiden. Her smile is still the same. And were it not for that great red blot by the bed linen next to her neck, one might think she was asleep.
She too. Are all asleep. Must be good to sleep.
Tomorrow they will sleep sweetly in the earth, Creon, and you will bury them. You who would not bury Polynices today will bury Eurydice and Haman tomorrow, and Antigone too. The gods take a hand in every game, Creon, even politics.
The task is there to be done. They say it's dirty work, but if I didn't do it, who would do it?
Why must dirty work be done? Now you are alone, Creon.
Oh, yes. Alone. Boy.
Sir.
What time is it?
5 o'clock, sir.
What do we have on at 5 o'clock?
Cabinet meeting, sir.
Cabinet meeting. Well, better get to it.
Well, there we are. All those who were meant to die have died. Those who believe one thing and those who believe the contrary thing. And even those who believe nothing at all, that were caught up in the web without quite knowing why. All dead, stiff, useless, rotting. And those that have survived can now begin quietly to forget the dead. They won't remember who was who or which was which. Creon was the most rational, the most persuasive of tyrants. And yet, like all tyrants, he refused to distinguish between the things that are Caesar's and the things that are God's. Well, Antigone is calm tonight. She's played her part. Great melancholy wave of peace settles down now upon Thebes, upon the empty palace, and upon Creon, who can now begin to wait for his own death. Only the guards are left, and none of this really matters to them. It's no skin off their noses. They just go on playing cards.